Welcome to Engaging the Supernatural, where we explore what God is saying to us through signs, wonders, and miracles. I'm excited to have another near-death experience discussion with two of my very good friends. I have Randy Kay and Ivan Tuttle with me today, and we're going to do a two-part conversation where we're just going to have a broad overview of what they experienced when they left their bodies, what they experienced in hell or heaven, and what it was like when they re-entered their bodies. So we're going to cover some very interesting ground today, and I hope you're encouraged by it. I think the place I'd love to start, so both of you guys clinically died and entered into an encounter, an experience. I'll start with you, Ivan. I'd love to hear a little bit about what was it like when you kind of entered into your out-of-body experience or you left your body? What did that feel like? What were you sensing? What were you seeing?
Well, I was sensing a lot of things. Fear was the biggest one because I was not living for the Lord at the time when I died. And so there was a huge amount of fear that was, had gripped me because I realized this thing that had come to take me was not from heaven.
And when you say this thing that came to take you, like, was it a demon? What was it?
It was a demon. Yes,
Okay.
it was a very large demon, very powerful demon. And when it took, I was laying on my side and it grabbed me and pulled me up out of the bed. And I can remember that distinctly. And I remember how I was immediately, I'm trying to fight this thing because back then I was in this really good shape. And if I hit you once, you're basically down. If I had to hit you twice, it's for sure you'd be down. And I was hitting this thing rapidly and had no effect. And, and I'm trying to turn a light switch on and my hand's going through the wall. And I'm like, this is bizarre. And I turn around and I look and I'm still in the bed. I see my physical body there.
Did you actually recognize that was you? Because some people, when they see their body, they don't always recognize that it's them.
Oh, I knew it was me because that was my bed. That's where I sleep in. It had to be me, And I looked at my alarm clock and I'm like, oh. And then I realized I'm dead. I mean, and this all happens within a few seconds. And then instantly I knew I was dead. And once I knew I was dead, it was just like this thing comes over you where for me, it was like, okay, so I'm dead. All of a sudden I start having this knowledge like you couldn't believe, just tons of knowledge start running through your head. But I knew this thing was taking me to hell. And I knew that's where we were going to go. I mean, I could hear screams at a distance. I could hear we moved rapidly. I mean, it's hard to explain speed like that. It's beyond what we can even imagine.
So when you transitioned out of your bedroom, did you enter into a tunnel? Like, what was that in-between space that you moved through to go from your bedroom to hell?
You could say it's a tunnel, but it was a very dark tunnel. It was very, very dark. And it was just not a place you want to be.
Right.
It's like, have you ever had one of those things where like you fallen asleep on a couch or something and you feel like you just fell off the edge of it, you try to jump back and catch yourself? It's worse than that feeling, because that free fall, that it's horrible. And it was probably the scariest thing. It's even hard to talk about.
Sure.
We were talking about this earlier, and it's something very hard to even talk about because the feeling that comes over you, hopelessness.
Right.
And it's it. This is it. You're going to hell. You're going to be there forever. And it's a very tough, difficult thing. So, yeah, that's the first part of it. I mean, we can go into details, whatever you'd like.
We're going to kind of ping pong this. We're going to press pause on your story.
You.
And Randy, let's have you share about, like, for you, when you left your body and entered into kind of the phase we typically call that out-of-body experience where you're aware of what's around you and you're transitioning. Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, initially it felt like there was a pulling at my shirt, a tugging. I was flopping on the bed like a fish out of water. And then instantly things went dark. And I was in a space of not nothingness, but a space that was very surreal to me. And then in the distance, I could see as this light was coming down upon me, and it was slowly going from a darkness to a lighter grades of kind of visibility of now rolling hills and other places that I saw.
Did you rise through the ceiling or anything?
I was rising. I could see my body from below. I could see my still body now on the hospital bed. And then I looked into the distance as the visibility was increasing as I was rising, being pulled by this light. I could see these warring figures in the distance. And they were otherworldly. They were very, on one side, on the left side, they were gangly figures and they were very morbid looking. There was no real life to them, but there were gargantuan, and they were something like you might view from a horror flick. And then on the other side were the figures that were equally as towering, but the light was being shown on them, and the light was giving them power, and they looked very different. They had what looked like shining armor, and both sides had swords, what looked like swords. And bear in mind that when I say these things, I'm trying to ascribe it to a vernacular that we understand.
Right.
But this is much more ethereal than that. And they were fighting amongst each other. And there were those who were on the ground, and there were those who were warring against each other, both the right side, who I knew later as the angels, and the left side were the demons. And I came to understand after the fact that they were warring over my soul. And I knew in an instant that the only thing I could do as a believer in Jesus was to cry out his name. And so I cried out the name of Jesus Christ. And I was side by side with him after I did that.
All right, we'll continue ping-ponging back and forth. We'll pause your story because we need to get Ivan caught up to Jesus and his story as well. So back to your story, Ivan. You have this out-of-body experience. You know you're heading into hell.
Right.
Tell us about some of that encounter.
Sure. Well, it's the hardest part of my thing to do, so I'll just be real blunt. And it's just when you're going to hell and you start realizing that's where you're at, and you realize this is the end game. You know, this is it. You're not going to get out of this, you know, and I'm crying out just like everybody does. You're crying out, you know, why am I here? I wasn't that bad of a person. Why am I in hell? You know, you just can't understand it. I mean, you can, and you know it, but you don't want to accept it. You don't want to accept going to hell, but you're there, and there's nothing else you can do about it. And as I'm going along, and I'm going past people, as I'm going past so many people that are in hell is really crowded, you know, but they're making room. You know, they just keep doing it. And it's like it just keeps coming and coming. And I'm seeing all these people. And then everybody I look at, I instantly know everything about that person. I know what they did from the time they were born to when they died and why they're in hell. And it was amazing because the people that I saw there were not the people that I was expecting to see. Listen, to be blunt, I saw pastors, evangelists. I saw everyday people. I saw people that were supposed to be nice people. But I saw people because they haven't done the one thing they're supposed to do, you know, accept Jesus, you know. And I see these people in hell, but I see the torture, I see the torment. But again, I have to go back to the hopelessness.
Right.
And it's hard to explain, but and I've said this before, but if you jump out of an airplane at 15,000 feet up without a parachute, a perfectly good airplane, and you're going to jump out, and the whole earth is nothing but concrete and rock, and you're going to land on your head, you have more hope. Boy, I'm going to be able to do this and get up and walk away than you do when you're in hell. So it's a horrible feeling.
Right.
It's really, really tough. And you know this is it. And when you see these people, and it's gut-wrenching to look at these people and see how come what they've done in their lives and why they're in there. You know, and it all could be eliminated, you know. And I guess it's a thing that I'm thinking in my head while I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, wow, even myself. And I'm like thinking, why didn't I stick with this? Why did I do this? You know, why did I slide back? Why did I walk away from God? And you start looking at those things, and how many other people are in there that walked away from God, and how many people in there never knew about God? And that was, I think, not to tear up on you, but I think the thing that affects me the most is knowing that there's people in hell that I could have talked to, people that I knew, friends that I had that are in hell because I never talked to them about accepting Jesus. I talked to them, they knew I was a Christian,
Sure,
you know, later on, but, you know, or earlier in my life, but here these people are. And then even today, how many people have I missed? I know that sounds crazy, but once you've been through this, you don't want anybody to go to hell.
right.
Not even your worst enemy if you have an enemy. So it's bad.
Well, and one of the things that really sticks out to me from your story, and again, having read a number of books about people who are into Satanism and whatnot, they'll talk about encountering Lucifer or Satan, or that he kind of inhabits or is embodied in someone, and that he's like a beautiful prince, and that's something happening kind of, so to speak, in the natural, if you will. But you experienced and saw who we would call Lucifer in hell, who was beautiful and attractive, and just, I think a lot of times people assume Satan is going to look like this evil, scary looking demonic character, and that is not at all what you saw.
That's not what I saw. First of all, if he looked like that, you'd recognize him immediately.
Right.
But when he comes to you, he's so deceptive. Listen, when you see Lucifer or Satan, whatever you want to call him, he's so beautiful. I don't care, man, woman, you will look at him and you'll be like, whoa, you're just in total awe because you've never seen someone or a creature that looks that beautiful. And that it's just like, you're in awe. I mean, you just can't help it. I'm right there in hell, but I'm looking and I'm like, you can't take your eyes off because he's just that gorgeous, that handsome, that beautiful, that everything. I could never draw a picture of it.
Sure.
So I'm not an artist. But even if I was, I don't think I couldn't capture what's there. But it does that because that's the deception. That's a huge deception because people think, oh, they look good, they must be good.
Right.
So it's a real deception. And there's so many things too, because there are demonic things that are actually beautiful, that enter people, that fool people and take people down a wrong path. That's what happened to me. I mean, somebody, the demonic was in somebody, and I walked away from Bible college because this person was beautiful, but there was more to it. And yeah, but Satan was, I don't know, beautiful. That's the deception.
Sure. And so we got to catch you up to the point we're at in Randy's story. How do you go from being in hell to going to heaven? What caused that transition?
But what happened is this demon that had a hold of me, and I couldn't get free from it. He's taking me, and he's going to put me in my final resting place. And what I mean by that is you're in a place, and it's like there's a chain around you, but there's nothing there. It's somehow or another you're just held in space, and your feet are dangling. You're not standing or anything. You're just dangling. You can move your arms around, but you're not going anywhere. And this demon's getting ready to put me in my final resting place. And as he was getting ready to do that, a voice rang out, and the voice says, "You must let him go. It's not his time." I made a promise to his mother. At that point in time, this demon had a hold of me that no matter what I did, I couldn't do anything to it. It was laughing at me. It was making fun of me. And this demon just shook and was petrified of that voice and instantly let go of me. And when he let go of me, I just boom. I mean, within that quick, I'm in heaven. I'm at the gates of heaven, greeted by an angel. That's how I got to heaven.
All right. We'll give Ivan a rest. Randy, back to your story. So you end up being face to face with Jesus. Tell us about that encounter.
Well, I'd always been a doubter, Sean. I had been like a doubting Thomas most of my life. I was a believer in Jesus Christ, but I was a prove it kind of person, and so my perception of God was one of kind of this ethereal, awe-inspiring person. And when I came face to face with Jesus, my first impression was really in a side to side, where and he leaned his cheek into the side of my face, and I could feel his soft whiskers against my skin. And I knew instantly that it was Jesus. And then he whispered into my ear, the first words he said to me, "Trust me." And I had never been a trusting person in my entire life. I had always had this shadow of a doubt, not a doubt in my salvation, but a doubt really that God was really who he was and the full authority and power that we find in the Bible. And so I caved. I just caved. And I was praising him on my knees with every superlative I could think of. Almighty God, Lord. And then he reached down and he reached his left arm around my left shoulder. He took my right arm and he pulled me up very gently. Turned me around to be face to face, looking into the eyes of God. I was looking through the eyes of love, and I never understood love as consummate love. I I'd understood love as an emotion, an action, but I never had looked into the eyes of the personhood of love. And I looked into his eyes, and his eyes were shimmering from this immense light that was emanating from him that I understood was the light that had previously pulled me up from the darkness to be with him. And then that light tunneled into every dark place within me. And it exposed everything in my heart. And I saw both the good and the bad. I saw the times in my life when I had pleased the Lord, and there were many of those. And then I also saw the times when I had not pleased the Lord, when I had failed. And one of those was when I was sitting in the coffee shop with my wife just 2 weeks before I died. And I had said to her, our daughter has lost her health. She has had many strokes. We lost most of our finances after, coming from a conference introducing a new drug that was a cure for Alzheimer's. I lost all of that. And I was sitting in the coffee shop with her, and I said, at least we have our health. In 2 weeks, I was dead. I saw how I doubted God at that time, and it was before me. But the amazing thing about that, as I was seeing these vignettes, is that those times did not condemn me. They reflected the grace of Jesus in all of these things. And I remember looking at these series of failures, thinking, really? You forgave that? And I thought that was unforgivable. And I went through these, and I was thinking, and he said, yes. And I could sense the immensity of that love. It surpassed all of my failures, all of my weaknesses, so that the only thing I could experience was the loving tenderness of my Lord. And that was the part that when the full grace of God was revealed to me and who he was to me. And I was free. I was free for the first time in my life. And I trusted him fully, trusted someone fully for the first time.
So Randy goes from kind of that liminal in-between space. You go right to be with Jesus. You have your life review. So Ivan, you said you end up getting pulled out of hell to the gates of heaven. Take us into that part of your journey.
Sure. I got to the gates of heaven, and as soon as I got there, I'm looking at this, and there's this huge angel. Now, when I say huge, at least 7 foot tall in human terms. And his voice was very soft, so powerful when he spoke. Now, I say he because it looked like a man.
Right.
And it was just soft and it was powerful. And he explained to me, he says, listen, you're not ready for this. You're going to have to go back and get ready. But in the meantime, you have to hold my hand. You need to hold my hand, and I can take you in there. And it kind of reminds me sometimes of when I say this, the only thing I can think of is when Peter got down out of the boat. He was walking on the water, and when he lost faith, Jesus reached out and grabbed him by his hand. Well, as long as he had his hand, he was able to make it back to the boat, walking on the water. So, I look at that, but this angel had me by the hand, or I had the angel by the hand. I'm not letting go of that angel. And the angel took me in through the gates of heaven. And then I got to see this beautiful city. I saw these big buildings, big, huge, white, like a white stone, like a marble, but so shiny. But what was amazing is as the angel took me into the building, it was just as bright inside the building as it was outside. And one of the things I started getting an understanding of, little things were like, you don't sleep in heaven, because it's your spirit. Your spirit never sleeps anyway, just like in the flesh today. It doesn't sleep. We're asleep, but our spirit's awake. So, by the way, which makes it fun if you speak in tongues before you go to sleep. You keep it going while you're sleeping. Anyways, so I'm going there and I'm seeing all these things. Now, the angel was taking me through a crowd of people. There was a lot of people there. And then I was able to start seeing different things. But then I saw Jesus from a distance starting to come towards me where I was at. And I watched that experience happen. And I watched how the crowds got crazy. Whenever he came closer, everybody up there just started really praising him. Even, it's hard to explain, but it was just unbelievable. So I started seeing those things, and it was wonderful. It was beautiful. Just heaven was the opposite. Hell was like, there's no hope. When you're in heaven, and this euphoric feeling is over you, that's unbelievable euphoric. It's just unbelievable. So I'm taken around heaven, but then while I'm there, some of the things I saw, should I talk about, would you mind if I talked about the children? Or
I want to get into that in the second part.
Okay, good.
So you knew before you went through those gates, you were going to go back. I mean, it sounds like the angel made that very clear.
I didn't want to go back. That's one of the things I asked the angel was, well, why can't I stay here? And the angel says, no, you have to go back and make yourself right with God. You're going to get a chance to see this. You're going to be given some things, and then you're going to be sent back. And that was the only disappointment in it, except for I was glad I was going to be able to go back, because I was told if I don't go back, I have to go back to hell.
Sure.
And so that was like, okay, no problem. So, we're going to do this. And then the things that I saw there, the things I saw about the future of the earth, how the earth began, and awesome things.
Well, Randy, back to your story. I'm curious. So Ivan, before he even gets to step into heaven, he knows he's going back. Did you know that you were going back, or when did you know that you were going to be coming back here to earth?
I had always wanted to hear that infamous line from that Jesus, well done, my good and faithful servant. And I didn't hear that initially when I entered into heaven with Jesus. And I'd had this intimate time with Jesus throughout heaven. And then he said, I'm sending you back. And I felt like a kid who had woken up on Christmas morning, went down to open up his presents, and his parents said, you got to go back to bed. It was a profound disappointment, to say the very least. And so I had obviously asked Jesus why. And he said, because you have not fulfilled your purposes yet. And then a butterfly rested on my left shoulder. And everything in heaven is so brilliant, all the colors, the vibrancy. So I knew it. And also everything in heaven has meaning. So there's nothing that is unintentional in heaven. And I knew that there was an intentionality to why Jesus had allowed or called this butterfly to rest on my shoulder. And so he said that was the voice of wisdom telling me what to do. And he was telling me that would be my guide as I went back. And the voice of wisdom was the voice of God, the Holy Spirit, instructing me as I went back. And so I had been very type A, throughout all of my life. And so Jesus knew that. And so I was expecting then a blueprint from Jesus. So I asked him, tell me specifically, please, what my purpose is. What am I supposed to do? How am I to go forward? That sort of thing. And then he said, and this is something that changed my life forever. He said, moment by moment, I will reveal my purpose to you. And that was an anathema to me. I had never understood what that meant. But I knew that I had to still my heart, Psalm 46:10, before the Lord, and know that he was God. And I was never that type of a person, but he was telling me that I needed to still myself, to hear his voice, to guide me moment by moment, so that I would fulfill my purpose in the moments of life, and not just in this grandiose scheme of achieving, the next level or the next success or something, thereof. And that was a profound realization. So as he looked at me, and I tell you what, I've never felt such loss when he looked into my eyes, and I knew it was the last time I would see him in heaven. And he said this to me. He said, well done, my good and faithful servant. And I wondered why he would, at the end of my time in heaven, why he would say that to me. Because I longed to hear it at the beginning of my time in heaven. And it was only after the fact, when I was praying and the Holy Spirit was speaking into my life, that I understood what he was saying to me. and understood that God's future, or my future, is in God's past. That my future was in God's past. So he was speaking to me in heaven. And that was what I would realize from him, those words, when I went back to be with him. He was speaking that into my life. And of course, that transformed my life when I returned to the point where, today, having been, in the world, the corporate world, and founding companies and biotech and healthcare and what have you, that now I look for opportunities in life. I go to the grocery store and I look for an opportunity to pray for somebody or to realize what God's intention is for me in the moment I find myself wherever I'm in my station in life throughout the day.
Well, and sadly, we got to wrap up this segment. We've got a couple minutes to go yet. So I think the place I'd like to land this conversation is have you both comment briefly on the depth of emotion, the heightened senses in heaven, because there's like a fullness. Everything is amped up to like the ultimate experience. So we'll start with you, Ivan. Just tell us about the senses, emotion, feeling in heaven, if you can put it into words.
Well, that's about right. All I can tell you is that whatever senses you have on the earth, it's like, we call up, 5, but we
Sure.
talk about 6 sense. It's like 1,000 senses up there because you look, you feel, something that you look at and you see, you can actually feel it too. You can taste it. It's just it's beyond what you can taste colors. You can taste taste music. I know it sounds crazy, but it's like everything up there. Just all these senses are alive.
Sure.
I mean, major alive with you, but it's this sense of being in the presence of God, because when you're in heaven, you're in the presence of God. Being in that presence is something. All I can tell you is coming back to earth, you look for moments that you can have. Usually it's when you're for me, it's been when I'm by myself. I don't know about you, but it's like, I have these moments where I want to be alone. I want to be listening to some kind of worship music. And I just want to try to get that healing, because there's such an emotional thing, such an emotional feeling up there. You can't describe, I can try to describe it and I'll fumble around for an hour, but it's really hard. But
yeah. It's very hard to, and I guess I was listening to you so intently, Sean. I don't know if you have a follow-up question for me or
Well,
the same.
I think, Randy, we'll pick up with your part talking a little bit about fullness of emotion and senses when we get to the next part of this interview. So sorry to leave you hanging, but come back next week. We will pick up this conversation right where we are leaving off now, and we'll see you again next week on Engaging the Supernatural.